And for those of you who are on right now, I'm Charles Smith, the Executive Director of Cultural Pluralism in the Arts Movement Ontario. I don't have hair, clean shaven, light brown skin, reddish glasses, bit of a beard, more or less a goatee, the mustache, and I'm wearing a black short sleeve shirt today. Behind me are African artifacts, I would say art, actually, statues, and indigenous art as well. I feel so strongly about Malika's comments of all of our indigenous ancestors, and so bring them together in my space. I'm going to hand it on to Perry Voldari. Perry has been working with us over the past year, along with Lynne Ashton, on CPAMO's digital projects, which have been focusing on building the capacity of Indigenous, Black, people of color, deaf and disabled, other marginalized artists and arts organizations, their capacities to understand and use digital. So I'm going to hand it over to Perry, who will moderate the session for us and introduce the panelists, and we'll see you soon. Perry, over to you.
Thank you, Charles. Good morning. I'm Perry Voulgaris. I'm at home. I have the fans on. It's lovely and warm, enjoying the moment. I'm graying and losing my hair ever so slowly, and enjoying the sun out there and getting a bit of tan on this white skin, as my kids have told me, Dad, you really need to get out more. This time of COVID has left me inside more than I would like to enjoy. And now I'm getting out and enjoying this beautiful weather of ours and getting some fresh air. I want to thank Charles and the team at CPAMO. This has been an amazing journey. I would like to thank Lynne Ashton, who I will throw to in a minute, to go through the report. I would love to thank all of our panelists and partners, from Jessa Aguilo at ArtsPond to Sean Lee and Victoria Ann Warner at Tangled Arts, to our friends at Culture Brew, Valerie in Anjou, and to Amy at the Canadian Opera Company and Chris at the National Ballet. I would like to say that, you know, it's been an amazing learning experience as well for me, in understanding arts organizations and artists and the tools that they're using, some of the challenges, some of the struggles, and hopefully through this process, this learning curve will inform further research and further programs and projects that will help the community in the ways that it needs assistance. So with that, I would like to throw to Lynne Ashton to go through our report.
There, unmuted. Yes. Thank you, Barry. I'm Lynne Ashton. I am a digital media strategist who also works in diversity and inclusion areas. I have shoulder length and growing graying hair and red glasses and a light brown complexion. I am a multiracial person. Also wearing a teal shirt. There you can see stairs behind me, and occasionally a cat will go by, and also teal colored walls. So I think that's my description. So I have been engaged by CPAMO on 2 reports. The first one was a research and consultation report to see what's out there in terms of work that has already been done for digital tools for arts organizations, and then to talk to people, particularly the IBPOC and marginalized arts community, to find out what they need. So that first report, it's on the CPAMO website. This second stage sort of grew out of that and the more immediate needs related to the pandemic and everybody shifting to a digital space. So this second report is what I'll talk about now, and I'm going to share my screen and we'll go through a short deck. So there were 2 components of this stage. First was virtual workshops, which were conducted from November 2020 to March 2021, and then a digital tools listing that came out of the workshops, but also some independent work. So there were 4 different workshop partners, and they each looked at different aspects. ArtsPond did 4 workshops, and I should sort of preface with saying that all of these workshops, the videos are on the CPAMO website. The hope is that people will go and look at them, even if you didn't have time to participate. They're a resource that you can go and look at now. So the ArtsPond did 2 workshops, just reviewing a lot of digital tools that are available for arts organizations and arts professionals. And it's a wide range, many of which are in the later stages of the report. The other 2 workshops were more hands-on tutorials. So they took people through how to use some of these, the more common tools. Tangled Arts and Disability, the focus was accessibility. There are 4 videos for the 4 workshops dealing with things like approaches to accessible curation, the various digital tools that support accessibility, how to use the accessibility tools that are built into common software, such as Word or Adobe, or social media. I mean, there are built-in accessibility tools in Instagram and Twitter. And protocols to use when working with ASL interpreters, such as spotlighting and live captioning. And then there was a hands-on tutorial about how to use some of the common software programs to improve your accessibility and communications outreach. Culture Brew is an organization that has built an IBPOC database for artists, and they had sessions on how to set up a hands-on session on how to set up your profile on Culture Brew. And then they talked about their experiences building a digital tool. So for any organization that wants to start from scratch and create their own software platform for any purpose, how to do that as an arts organization and with the diversity, equity, and inclusion lens. So at times, coming from the arts area or having that diversity and inclusion lens means you have to make different choices. And you're talking to software developers who don't think in those terms. So frequently you're 2 different languages. So there was a lot of sharing of their experiences to help any organization who's going to take on that kind of a challenge. Then 4 sessions from the Canadian Opera Company and the National Ballet of Canada that were focused on digital tools for large organizations. They talked about their digital stage project. It's a very large project, so I can't do it justice in this short period of time, but you can read more about it in the report, as well as hear from them, and they're on this panel later. And they gave examples of how they're partnering with smaller organizations and tools that they use as large organizations, but which they recommended that smaller organizations could collaborate and use, such as a Tessitura platform, which is a customer relationship management tool. So you can, if you're a bunch of small organizations, collaborate together on one license. Then the bulk of the report is a listing of different digital tools. And they're ones that were mentioned in the workshop, as I said, or further research with the description, what the value of that tool is to arts professionals and smaller organizations, a URL so you can find them, and current as of this date price, where those are available. Quite often you have to actually contact the software to get a quote. So an example here is It lists Asana, which is a popular tool for communications management, team management. There's the link. There are the different price points and what you can get at those different price points. The document goes through these topics: office productivity, website hosting, customer relationship management, project or team management, video communication, live streaming, and accessibility tools, captioning, video description, and ticketing. Yeah, and that is it.
Thank you, Kelly Lynn. Joining us today are our panelists, Sean and Victoria from Tangled Arts, Amy from the Canadian Opera Company, and Chris from the National Ballet. Starting off with Sean, introductions, and then we'll move around.
Great, thanks, Perry. So my name's Sean. For my image description, I am an East Asian person, and I have kind of long black hair that comes down to my shoulders. I use he or they pronouns, and I'm someone that's visibly disabled. My back curves, my shoulders are uneven, and I'm wearing these like steampunk kind of glasses. They're green with gold rims that float on the frames. I have quite pale skin, and I'm wearing a black t-shirt, and I'm sitting cross-legged on kind of like a wooden chair in my dining room. In the background, there's a painting on a shelf and a door to my right. Yeah, it's my living room, nothing particularly special. And I'm the director of programming at Tangled Art and Disability. I'll pass it back to you, Perry.
Thank you, Sean. Victoria?
I've broken the thing of somebody speaking before they've unmuted themselves. Hi, everyone. I'm Victoria. I'm the research coordinator at Tangled. My pronouns are she and her, and I am a white woman with long brown hair, and I have 50s style glasses on right now, and I'm very lit from one side of my face. There is also, I will say, sometimes if I speak, there may be some banging and crashing in the background because there is currently construction going on behind my building. So please ignore that if that happens. Behind me is a warm yellow wall and a bed frame from a daybed that's in my dining room, and a random shelf full of things, and one poster on the wall that is a map. For those who are also nerds, it is from Critical Role, and it is a map of Wildmount. And I identify as a disabled, mad, and queer woman. And I will pass back to Perry.
Thank you, Victoria. Amy?
Hi, I'm Amy. I hope everyone can hear me. I've been having some audio challenges today. I am a white woman in my 40s, mid-40s now. I have long shoulder-length blonde hair, black-rimmed glasses. I'm wearing a mauve cardigan and a black dress. I'm speaking to you from my living room, and behind me you'll see a lovely painting that was a gift to me from my father, and behind my left shoulder you'll see a lovely orchid and a picture of my deceased dad as well. I'm thrilled to be here, and I identify as she and her. And over to you, Perry. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. And Chris?
Hello, I'm Chris Sonnemann. I'm the Director of Technology for the National Ballet. I am a tall white male. I'm wearing one of my many superhero shirts, red. I have short hair and a beard, and I'm coming to you from my office, which has a light pink wall and pictures of my children behind me.
Very cool. Thank you. I have a couple of questions that I'll start off with the panel, and then I'd like to open it up to the audience. You can feel free to add your questions into chat, and I will ask them. Also, at the end of this process, I will be transcribing some of the questions, comments, thoughts into a Google Jamboard, and then sharing it with the attendees today. So first question to the panelists is, you've read the report. Anything surprise you? Anything, that lessons learned through this process and after reading the report? Anything that you will take away from this report and apply to your day-to-day as an organization and future plans? Let's start off with Amy and your thoughts.
In the hot seat. Thank you, Perry, for the question. What's really striking to me is the amount of technology that is being employed by the sector, but also the opportunity that it is creating for much deeper collaboration between companies. And what I'm thinking of now is the recent strategic plan released by Canada Council for the Arts that's really encouraging the sector to be collaborative and not competitive. So what I think is going to be a great result from this report, a great result from the outreach that CPAMO has done, bringing all of these organizations together, is building this sense of community and sectoral collaboration that will lead to deeper adoption of technology across the sector, from large to small organizations.
Thank you, Amy. Victoria?
I really agree with a lot of what Amy just said. Because I know that for myself, I grew up with a computer programmer from my dad, and technology is a comfort for me, but it's not for a lot of people. And so I'm really hopeful, and looking forward to, people get overwhelmed when they're looking up this stuff. So to be able to have it all in one place and to be able to be having these conversations is really important. I think the whole process for me, I'm really trying to figure out how to approach access with people a lot more. So I think a big part of the process for me was helpful, just because the more I am working with people on access, the more I'm learning about how to really help people start from where they need to and go forth without doing that overwhelming thing. So yeah, those are my thoughts at the moment. Yeah.
And Chris at the ballet.
I think from a larger organizational perspective, sort of looking at the challenges that other organizations are having, smaller organizations, and sort of realizing that there's a lot of things that we should be doing and we should be employing and we should be putting forth, even something as simple as our own website and the level of accessibility and the ability of individuals to be able to consume information. So we've been doing a lot more work of trying to make the information that we put out there accessible. But then also looking at that and realizing that as an organization that actually has an IT department and that sort of knowledge base, how can we make that resource accessible to others? How do we take the knowledge and the skills that we have and help other organizations or individuals get access to it or understand or even just provide those as resources so that everyone in arts and culture benefits from the stuff that we have. And that's been a lot of conversations with the CSC specifically about, okay, how do we take our institutional knowledge and our resources and share those things out, because that's just going to benefit the entire sector, which is a benefit to everyone, including us. So, that's really what it is that we need to start focusing on. So.
Thank you, Chris. And Sean, your thoughts, ideas?
I really resonated with what Amy said, particularly around kind of having a more collaborative way of working. I think sometimes we can, in our digital spaces, be feeling like we're all working in silos and we're all working very independently. But I think what these digital tools that have been so generously collected is showcasing that we can really work as a sector together. And I think right now, like particularly for the work that we've been doing at Tangled, this notion of accessibility has almost become a bit of a hot topic in our cultural conversations. I think largely because some practices that had previously been, largely denied to disabled people are now being provided through many of these digital tools and digital ways of working. And so I really hope that this toolkit, and I think this toolkit has the potential to help act as a way of maintaining a kind of hybrid way of working as we come back to, some form of in-person. And I think it helps create a more, kind of a base of knowledge from where we can take these collaborative ways of working digitally and maybe apply them to that kind of hybrid model in the future.
Cool, thank you. Kelly, Lynn, and I were talking the other night about questions to ask the panelists, and one that came up was this notion of a new organization, a new arts organization that's starting up, and your recommendations to this new arts organization as the type of tools that they should look at as priority tools and the most important tools for a young new organization. So we'd love to get your thoughts, and maybe I'll start with Chris on this one. On what would you recommend to a new arts organization and the tools that they should prioritize as essential tools?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of tools that are out there just simply for the purposes of communication and being able to sort of organize your office and be able to talk with people. There's a lot of really wonderful free office tools and things that you can use. Google, as an example, is incredibly inexpensive and gives you all of the things that you need in order to be able to start your communication. Starting out with just simply the free open source tools that are available will allow you to set yourself up to be able to do the type of administrative work and the things that you need to do to start to expand your organization without having an incredible amount of capital output in order to be able to do that. And as smaller organizations, capital is not something that you have, so you want to be able to focus on your art and not spend money on other things. So, but the wonderful thing about open source is it's pay what you can, right? So by going in, you're also supporting other organizations that are open, charitable organizations that are building tools for you, and you can contribute to their success, which then contributes to yours. So I would start with as many open source tools as you can find, and that's like the Mozilla organization, which provides Firefox and email tools. You've got Google, and then there's a bunch of different charitable organizations that provide access to technology for small groups like TechSoup and things like that. So I think that's a great place to start to establish and sort of build out the tool set that you need.
Cool, thanks, Chris. Victoria, your thoughts?
A lot of my thoughts on this, I think, come from my experiences. There's this thing that happens that I notice when organizations are starting up and growing, is that we lose track of our digital organization and our files really quickly. They get out of hand, and then everything is everywhere. People are questioning things. So like if I could start something from the ground up, I would be planning for my digital organization from the start, because going back and doing it starts to get really hard because you have a lot of other priorities. So if you can get that set up and prioritize having that time for it, I think that's really paramount, because I know one of the things I want to be doing at Tangled right now is we've grown so much, and I really want to look at our digital storage and how we're organizing everything and get it really clear for all of us. and just because it makes it so much quicker sometimes to get your work done. Yeah, that was like plan. I feel like my thing is plan your organization like bigger. Like it'll probably feel a bit silly. Like sometimes people look at how I'm naming everything. I'm very specific, but it means when I go to look for stuff, I've got it right there. So put more energy into that than I think you might need.
Sean?
I think from my perspective, like as someone who does programming for a younger new arts organization that's beginning, I think, thinking about your audience and centering who it is you're trying to reach is really important. For instance, like there are numerous social media platforms and each one has kind of a different way of being accessible. Like, recently Instagram added the ability to include alt text. But for instance, if you're on your iPhone and you're trying to use the Instagram app itself, it doesn't read your alt text very successfully. And so there's kind of interesting ways in which the accessibility of certain platforms work better, and you're going to reach audiences better in that way. So I think how you cultivate the audiences through these different platforms can be successfully done differently on each one. For instance, these days, I think we're all very familiar with live streaming events and being able to caption them, and the ability to, for instance, include audio description is something that we're still largely missing. And a lot of disabled people have been hacking Zoom, for instance, by using the kind of language translation tool as a way to provide audio description instead. So it's not officially a way that Zoom creates access, but it is a way that disabled folks have, through sort of their hacking of the everyday world, created a more accessible platform. So I think there's a lot of, like, there's many ways in which you can create access in a platform, and it's about kind of becoming familiar with each one, rather than saying like, oh, okay, we're going to stick with this one platform and we're just going to try to do everything on that. Like, I think it's really about understanding the platforms that you do choose to use and the audiences that you'll be able to tap into.
Cool, thank you. And over to you, Amy, your thoughts?
Hi. Yeah, I mean, I've had the great honor of serving on a couple of boards of smaller opera companies. And one of the things, especially for ticket-based companies and companies that are either going to be selling tickets or trying to raise funds, I have to speak to the absolute importance of a good customer service, customer relations management system, because we were tracking, hundreds of donors on Excel spreadsheets and trying to correlate tickets and sales and donations and relationship building and relationship management. And as the company continued to grow, that became extraordinarily unwieldy, and we were losing data. We were losing opportunities to interact with individuals. So when smaller companies are ready to take that next step from Excel to something that is a little bit easier to use, I think that's a real key moment in the development of a ticket-based company and to help them with their management of their system.
Cool, thank you. So I'm going to open it up to the audience, and there's a question in chat that I'll relay. And this is directed to Chris and Amy, but I think Sean and Victoria equally as well. And working with smaller arts organizations, do you provide staff who can give technical support and problem solving? Amy?
So we're not set up like that currently. What we are working towards, and this is the next step on our own digital journey, is a project called the Performing Arts Digital Lab, where the National Ballet, the COC, and a consortium of other groups will come together and, with the support of council, this is a project obviously that's funded by council, begin to lay the groundwork for a place where there is a cross-sectoral or a broadly supportive organization that can help with some of these more technical questions in terms of the use of digital technologies. Now, the way we're developing that is that it's in support of the creation of art at this point, but I think in the longer term, it may evolve into something that is bigger in scope, that would be able to answer some of the questions that were asked in the question. I'm just referring back to it, but a whole bunch of talk about, do you provide staff? Yeah, so I think we're on going in that direction. We're just not there yet.
Okay, Chris, over at the Ballet.
Should I put up the roadmap, Amy? I've got the
yeah,
roadmap,
go ahead.
Actually.
Yeah, please, yeah.
It's just, can you enable screen sharing for a second? Is that possible?
Yeah, just give me a moment and you'll be able to share the screen.
I mean, the same thing with the National Ballet. We're not set up specifically. However, I mean, in terms of the organizations we work with, you know, from an arts creation perspective, that's not something that I have control over. But as an IT professional with an IT group, I make myself accessible, and I've had people email me before asking me questions, and if I can provide answers or provide help or provide my time, I always do that because I can. And I've had staff, people ask specific questions, and I've directed to some of my staff that do that work as well, just trying to help people out where we can. So, you know, I make myself accessible as an IT professional because I have the time and I have the knowledge and resources to do that. So that's something that we're trying. But in regards to what Amy was talking about, see if I can actually make this happen here. Okay. Can everyone see that screen? This is the digital roadmap that we sort of put together with the COC. You know that the COC and the National Ballet have funding from the Canada Arts Council. And we started with our internal assessments within our organizations, and then we then applied for and received funding for 2 projects called the Digital Reach and the Digital Stage. As we've been gathering information and sort of understanding what the opportunities are, we've been sort of trying to build out capacity. One of those things is this tools for content capture. So we've fully outfitted the Four Seasons Center. They changed the name of it at the COC. It's got a new name now, and I don't know what it is. Amy, you're on mute.
The Canadian Opera Company Theatre.
There you go. No longer the Ayut, and no. The Prima Studio at the National Ballet. The next phase of this is now trying to put programs together to figure out how we can actually make this video technology capture equipment accessible to the community itself. The National Ballet has its creative action, where we have our open spaces where we invite dancers into our building and allow them to use our performance spaces. What component of that could then allow us to share out the video equipment so that people can actually capture in 4K high quality or live stream? So those are programs and things we're trying to figure out now. How do we make it available to the larger community? And then the culmination of this now is moving into a COC-led project, which is the Performing Arts Digital Lab, or PADL, which Amy spoke about. And the idea is to create these labs of technologies, motion capture, VR, video capture, you name it, and create different tools where artists can come in and experiment with digital technologies in a risk-free environment, where you don't have to put tons of capital out in order to be able to experiment. And if it doesn't work, you don't lose your shirt because of it. So the idea is how do we create a safe space where we can share out these types of leading edge technologies to the larger community and give them an opportunity to get access to stuff through the resources that we have that you would never, ever get a chance to have, like video walls and full motion capture tool sets. And we were doing that in conjunction with Sheridan College and the CERT Center, which is the Screen Industries Research and Technology Center. It's a technical access center through Sheridan College that provides access to resources for research projects. And then the last thing is, can we then turn this into a technology trust? And can we build an organization that is the link, the hub between the technology industry, education, and arts and culture itself? And then really share out, provide those resources and create something that everyone within the community can benefit from. We don't know. We hope to figure it out. We're certainly trying. We didn't get the funding for Arts and Culture Technology Trust, so we're stepping back and we're going to try again. And how do we build this out? Because we know that if we provide this type of access, if we do this for the community, everyone benefits, and we'll see some really great, cool stuff come out, which is fascinating and wonderful and interesting. So I will stop the share. I hope that answered the question. Maybe, kind of. You're muted, Perry.
There we go. Sorry about that. Yeah, thank you, Chris. And Victoria and Sean, from a Tangled Arts perspective, you know, in working with your artists, you know, and addressing the question, do you apply, do you work, do you collaborate? How do you engage with them, and how do you provide technical support as well?
I can take this one. I think something that often comes up when we're talking about accessibility is this idea of compliance, and particularly with the AODA, like the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act, related to kind of with a goal to be accessible by 2025 in Ontario. I think a lot of folks are scrambling at this moment to consider accessibility even before the pandemic. But what we're really interested in, and what we, I think, tried to underscore in our workshops, is that the idea of compliance is oftentimes done through a lens that's more based in kind of capitalism than it is around care and centering of disabled people. Because when disabled folks shape access, it's oftentimes a co-designed process. You know, we apply a very critical access lens to how access can be created. And so I would say that in our time working with artists and with other arts organizations, you know, I think having a base to understand the AODA and to understand the different ways that access compliance can be created is very important. But to really center disability justice in the work that we do, we really need to employ a lens of critical access that goes beyond the compliance that's provided through the AODA. And I think that's what a lot of these digital tools can work to do, is we can think about, you know, for instance, how do you use captioning beyond the sort of typical ways that you would provide captioning? Are there ways that it can be integrated into the aesthetics of the work that's being presented? Are there ways that, you know, audio description, for instance, can go beyond this sort of bare bones minimum of providing access to the visual content, and maybe actually having a performance or narrative that enhances the work, that becomes intrinsic to the work. So I think, you know, those are the ways that we include digital kind of capacity building. So to try to work beyond what would sort of be the compliance-based ways of creating access, and moving it towards something that's really more what I would say is liberatory access that centers disabled people. And I think a lot of these digital tools combined with, you know, a hybrid model can really work towards something different, something that's not necessarily prescribed to us as access, but rather can be generative and can be co-designed together with the community. And I don't know, Victoria, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I was just thinking about how with our artists, and I apologize, I need 2 seconds, my internet is unstable, so I'm plugging in. So with our artists, and whenever I'm bringing anybody in, we also give multiple ways of doing things. So if somebody isn't able to use a particular program, it doesn't work for them, or because we definitely will, we can say, hey, what about these other options? So for example, when I am doing research with the community, I am a fan of usually opening up my research by doing like a wider scan and doing a survey with our community, because our community at Tangled is really responsive. But I will give people options so they can fill it out online. They can do it with me over the phone. They can do it online. They can come in and view it pre-pandemic, and once we're back in our spaces, they can come in and do it with me in person. So it's a little bit of both, I think, that we do. And we are also looking at, we've really worked on making our language accessible by using plain language, and we're trying to work towards having new guidelines around how our language works, so that we know what language we're using for what types, because we have, you know, thinking about artists with intellectual disabilities, thinking about deaf artists, thinking about artists who might have print or reading disabilities. There's different things that work for everybody, so it's kind of just knowing what our options are beforehand really opens up, and it's like that pre-problem solving. Think of what might happen and then plan for it, because then when it happens, you immediately know, and you're not worried about what you can maybe do to help somebody. So
cool. Thank you. I'm just going to wrap it up. Thank you, Victoria. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Sean. This has been a great discussion. Thank you to Kelly Lynn in the report, and a big thank you to CPAMO and the work and continued work in this area. I'll throw this back to Charles and Kevin and for your final thoughts.
Thank you. Very insightful panel. Really appreciate the insights and the developments that obviously need a lot of collaboration for us to continue in this way and build that relationship between each other, so that those of us who have resources can share with those of us who want access to them, and those of us who want access can feel comfortable in connecting with those who do. I'm going to pass it on to Kevin, who will guide us through the next part of this morning. Kevin, over to you. Perry, everyone, take care.